Welcome back to another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is Simon Ohanian. He is the CEO of Aventura X, which is a major electric scooter producer. We first met in Panama, where I guess you guys have some operations, and it's an international corporation basically at this point with operations in LA, Miami, Barcelona, Spain, Panama. And so it's really cool to have a entrepreneur and CEO such as yourself, Simon, on the podcast.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having me, Vince. It's been a while. So, thanks for reaching out and willing to do this interview with me.
Thanks, man. So we first met at the Selena Hostel Hotel in Panama City in Casco Viejo. Had a couple nights hitting the town a little bit, getting some beers, going out for dinner
Yeah.
with your other buddy as well. Um, so maybe we'll come back to that, but I thought it would be cool, I guess, first to just give people a little bit of context about what Aventura X is.
The company started in New York City. Um, I had a corporate 9 to 5 job in Manhattan. I was working for an engineering firm. I was also running Airbnbs on the side because, as living in Manhattan is expensive. Just wanted to a different source of income. But then when
Mhm.
COVID hit, obviously uh, all the rentals stopped. So I wanted, to come up with something new. And obviously with the gas prices going up, and I love Vespas, I also love Teslas. So I found a supplier overseas, and we basically combined both these elements, if you would like, and came up with Aventura X, and that's kind of how it all started.
That's awesome. Um, so you guys got started in New York, and even taking a step back, you're an engineer by trade. You're a mechanical engineer. I believe you went to RPI, right, up in upstate New York.
Yeah,
So
that's
you
correct.
So it's interesting that you kind of made the leap from being a full-time engineer to now being a CEO who has to deal with payroll and sourcing and marketing, advertising, sales, accounting, all these different facets of business. I really think the engineering mind actually works well in business because you can kind of come at things from like a good framework. But it must have been quite a decision at the time, when 2 years ago, to say, you know what, I want to do something entrepreneurial.
Definitely, like you said, it was definitely a big transition. And I obviously don't see myself going back uh, to a 9 to 5 job, but it's definitely, I would say, more of a responsibility because other people's livelihoods are basically dependent on you as an entrepreneur. So
Hmm.
you have to make sure your sales are nonstop, and also you have your production is also nonstop. That way, I can basically, our mechanics, that's how they get paid. So there's definitely like a lot of responsibilities on my shoulder, but it's definitely a challenge that I was willing to take. And I'm very excited about this year. We're supposed to have a much bigger year than last year, and yeah, it's all exciting. It's scary, but exciting, as you know.
Well, you're definitely on trend. I mean, we're recording this March 8th, it is, where gas prices have just started hitting
Yeah,
6.50, 6.80, $7 a gallon in the United States, worldwide, going up a lot. So I think that's definitely going to be a positive tailwind for the business, being an electric
for
scooter.
sure, for sure.
And to give people a little bit of a visualization of what these scooters look like, it basically sort of looks like a Vespa. It looks like a very stylish, almost old school style scooter. Doesn't look like a Japanese type of scooter at all. Doesn't look plastic at all. It has like very nice sort of chrome details to it. Comes in really nice colorways, like kind of like a turquoise and a like a peach and a eggshell white and stuff like that. And like the scooter just looks absolutely beautiful. It looks really, really beautiful. Um, so it's really like sort of a high end scooter.
Yes, definitely. So yes, all our scooters are built out of ABS, so it's very durable, and we use the lithium ion batteries, not the lead acid, the lithium ion, which is um, much better, and they're removable, which is nice. Um, and it's a 2,000-watt motor, and we've increased the range actually this year as well on all our batteries. So
Oh, no way.
definitely it's just, and like you said, we have all those different type of colors, which attracts a lot of women. Actually, believe it or not, 55% of our buyers are women, which you don't see much of that. In this specific industry, and the reason why those stats are the way they are is because the scooter is fairly light, so it's very easy to handle. And the rule of thumb with electric, the lighter it is, the more range you have.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I think that from a business perspective, that's extremely attractive to have a business that's so balanced, meant to women and even women heavy because they have a lot of buying power. And, it's funny. I was just watching the first YouTube video that you guys put out. And just to give a little visualization for the audience. So it's, it's you. You're dressed very nicely. Your hair is very well combed and gelled. You're in New York. You head over the Brooklyn Bridge or the Manhattan Bridge on the scooter.
Yeah.
You pick up a girl on the street corner. You give her a little kiss on the cheek, and you basically start a date. And you take the scooter. You head off sort of into the mountains um, to some amazing lookout point, and then you go stop and get an ice cream, and then you go stop by this lake and jump off a cliff, and then you head down to the beach. You park the scooter right on the beach. You hop in the water, kind of frolic in the water a bit, and you're really sort of selling the dream and selling the lifestyle, and not just selling the feature um, based on the features or the range or the lightness or whatever, but you're really sort of selling the dream and helping people visualize what it would be like to own an Aventura X scooter.
Correct. Yes. So as you know, Aventura stands for adventure in Spanish. So yeah, we kind of wanted to give that lifestyle image. What it would be like to get an Aventura, and yeah, that was definitely a super nice video that we did. Obviously, as a startup, you're low on budget, so I had to be on the first video. um, but
Well,
yeah, I
luckily you're a
mean,
good looking guy.
I appreciate that, but yeah, I mean, there's tons of things you do as a startup. I had to assemble scooters. I replying to customers, shipping, everything from logistics to sales to marketing. There's a lot involved. Even custom clearance. Dealing with different retailers, dealing with different owners. It's just definitely a lot of responsibilities as a startup. So it's just something I like to say to be aware of if you ever think of starting a business. Um, and there's the risk of losing money as well when you first start.
Mm.
This is something that every entrepreneur should know. When you're first starting a business, you have to be you almost have to lose money before you make money. You have to fail multiple times before you know you become successful. And the most important thing is to learn from your mistakes, right? I think that's the key here in order to grow your business.
Yeah, those are definitely important lessons for any entrepreneurs out there. I remember specifically, not all that long ago, we were getting dinner in Panama, in the historic center of Panama, and you told me, like, when you left your job, you were all in. Basically, you basically put all your money in, and you said, you know what, I'm going to make this work.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. And, that was the risk I was willing to take. And, I knew, if this went wrong, I always had, my degree to lean back on. Um, Thankfully, it didn't. And so, yeah, I'm blessed and thankful for that. But yes, definitely, it's a risk that, you have to know before going into a business.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that we're able to have this conversation now, because at least um, I get the sense that you're kind of over the hump a little bit, in the sense that you're probably able to relax a bit. You're not in constant fear of failure. Things are moving, the sales are coming in. You have this tailwind of insane gas prices. You have momentum. You have the bikes physically. You have sort of a team, a network, and everything seems to be on the up and up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And yeah, I mean, I always like to, you know to put pressure on myself as well. I never like to relax. I'm not that type. But you're right about us getting over that hump for sure. Comparing to when we were a year ago when I was talking to you in Panama. Yeah, we've done a lot of progress since.
That's dope, man. Definitely congrats on all the epic work so far.
Thank you.
I do want to ask about maybe some of the numbers a little bit, but I thought maybe some more additional context would be better first. So to
Sure.
help people get a bit better of an understanding. So where are the bikes currently produced or manufactured?
So we assemble everything here in Los Angeles. We get some parts from Southeast Asia and some parts from the US, and we assemble everything here at our Los Angeles factory.
No way. So you guys are in-house
Yeah, we're
doing
assembling
assembly.
everything in house. Yeah, and we ship nationwide. And we have a lot of exciting projects coming up this year. I'm actually in the process of interviewing robotics engineers. We're hiring a robotic engineering team to develop a self balancing feature on our scooter, so the scooter would balance itself. So that means on a red light, you don't need
Wow.
to put your feet on the ground anymore, and the scooter
That'd
will balance
be
itself. So
that's
this is
insane.
so this is a super cool feature that we're looking to launch by 2023, and we also have the sidecar that we've already launched and is already on our website available for purchase. For your dog or for your buddy. It's a cool feature and it's electric, obviously. So it's low maintenance and much cheaper than gas, obviously. So yeah, check us out, Aventura X Electric.
I saw that sidecar. That's hilarious. It's like that classic sort of like sidecar on the side of a bike for like the sidekick, like Batman and Robin style or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And so, when you first got started, like, how did you um, select specifically electric scooters, and how did you source your first manufacturers? Did you fly out to Asia? Did you do it all over the phone? Or and then, like, how did you know what to get from Asia versus what to get from the States? I'm sure that's evolved over time. How has the sourcing model worked?
So yeah, very good question. Um, so we reach for the parts that we got from the states, were such as the rims, the tires. So there is specifications on each scooter to be in the NHTSA system. So basically, to be street legal. So every aspect or every part of the scooter that needed to be approved by the NHTSA, those come from the US, such as the tire, the rim, the brakes, the headlight, the tail lights. So
Mm.
those would be sourced here. And yeah, everything was done online. As you know, today everything is online. So, I sourced out all my parts online, reached out to different suppliers online, and yeah, and then now we put everything together here in Los Angeles.
And so you do have an engineering background, and I think that definitely sets you apart from other entrepreneurs that would really need um, to source like a finished product from Asia. But it sounds like you were sort of able to know what you needed and what was best to get from certain places. So it's basically sort of like the battery and like the body and sort of the, I don't know, let's just call it like the center guts of the bike come from Asia.
Correct. So the body was already existing in Asia. Um, the role that I played in was the range of the battery and the size of the motor. So basically, the higher the higher motor you have, the larger motor you have, the less range you're gonna have with electric. That's just with every electric vehicle. So I tried to find um, a reasonable range versus motor in order for our customers to still be able to climb any hill no problem with our existing motor while
Hmm.
maintaining that range. So that's where I reached out to the supplier and demanded the specific motor versus the specific 60-volt 20H battery that we currently use.
Okay, interesting. It's really cool. It's almost like you created like a private label version of something like somewhat off the shelf. It's really like a cool hybrid model. Um,
For sure, and not to forget that all the additions that we're doing in house here in our Los Angeles warehouse, or let me call it the assembly plant.
mhm.
So there's definitely going to be, that's the advantage of assembling the scooters, is we can add different features, such as the self balancing that we just spoke about earlier.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Yeah, that's really cool. And how did you at what point did you decide, actually before I get there, and then so just to help people further, so the bike does about 30 miles per hour top speed?
Correct. We also just launched a 40-mile per hour version as well.
Oh
So
wow.
if someone wants to go a little faster, we have that option.
Okay, so 30, 40 miles per hour. Is it, do you need a driver's license? Do you need a motorcycle license
So
for
it
this?
depends on each state. The reason why we did it 30 miles per hour is because in most states you don't. So we target a much larger audience. For example, New York City, you don't need a motorcycle license. Um, Denver, Colorado, you don't need a motorcycle license. Different different states, you don't. Some require, but most of them, I'd say, don't. Also, big shout out to my business partner, Ara. I don't want to forget about him because he really handles all the legal work. And so yeah, big shout out to him. Obviously, uh, you remember Ara from Panama.
Yeah, of course. Shout out to R. Yeah, I met Ara in Panama as well, and I do remember he's a lawyer by training, and I hope he's doing super well.
Yeah, he's great. I was just talking to him like half an hour ago, actually.
That's awesome. And would you happen to know what the rules would be in Canada or in Mexico or Latin America regarding the need for a license?
So that's a good question. We're actually started shipping to Canada this year as well. We've
Hmm.
been getting a lot of interest from there, and each province in Canada have their laws similar to the U.S. It's it's the same way there.
Okay, makes sense. And in so you guys are big in Barcelona in Spain as well. I'm just guessing that you don't need a driver's license or a motorcycle license in Spain, right?
And you don't need one in Spain, correct? Yes, we are the biggest in the U.S. Uh, but we do have a branch in the Spain area as well, correct, in Barcelona.
Awesome. And then in California, license or no license?
So California, you need an M1 license to drive our scooters. Technically, we send all our scooters with an MCO, and it's up to the customer to go and get plates for it and go to the DMV to register it.
Okay, cool. And you've had success with people registering the vehicle, no problem.
Yes, yes, exactly. Because we're already in NHTSA system. We're DOT approved.
That's awesome, man.
This
Um,
this was one of the biggest challenges for us. It took us close to 2 years to get this certification, but we're over that hump now because everything that comes from Southeast Asia is always a challenge to get those street legal here in a country such as like the US because they have a lot of rules.
and what's the name of that certification again?
So it's DOT, Department of Transportation.
Ah, okay. Great, great, great. Okay, so hopefully that's enough to help the user get it, or the audience get a little bit better picture of the bike and what the kind of general vibe of it is. I was just telling my buddies here in La Paz, Baja California, about the bike and about how I was going to be interviewing you, and they said like, "Dude, that's super genius. I could totally see this working in Toronto, Canada, where we're from. Totally see this working among urban people who have sort of smaller commutes." And so people definitely get it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Um, cool. Well, and this is the My Latin Life podcast, so I did want to speak to sort of the Latin elements going on here, and also just sort of the international business elements because I find it pretty fascinating. So, you guys started in New York, and I guess you've kind of moved the headquarters to LA. I'm guessing you did that because you wanted access to the ports and sort of quicker access to Asia, and just makes sense from like an assembly perspective, right?
You're absolutely correct. Also, the weather is always
Hmm.
nicer here. So most of our clients are on the West Coast, but this year it could be 50-50 because we've been getting a lot of demand from the East Coast. And also mainly is because we're closer to Asia for shipping purposes. So
Hmm.
it's just easier logistics for us.
Definitely. And so you're headquartered in LA. I know you guys have a bit of an office in Miami that I saw on the website. You said your cousin is handling things in Barcelona, Spain. We met down in Panama, where you guys were shipping stuff into or through Cologne, which is sort of the free trade port in Panama,
Correct.
about kind of on the other side of the Panama Canal from Panama City. So maybe I'd just be curious to get a feel for the international footprint of the business and the decisions you've made to grow internationally.
Yeah, definitely. Talking about Cologne, that's a great trade free zone. By the way, if anyone's trying to distribute their product across Latin America, I think that's a very, very good place to store. It's affordable and tax free. Um, so I figured I'd point that out. And
Yes, please.
regarding, because I know this is my Latin Life podcast, so I'm trying to give as much Latin
Value.
insights
Yeah,
as,
we need some
as,
Latin value here.
I know that's your thing. So and yeah, regarding international business, as you know, Barcelona is one of the biggest scooter hubs in the world. So that's why we decided to have a branch there. Actually, my cousin who wanted to do this, so I said okay, and yeah, so if you're in Barcelona or even in Madrid, um, Aventura X is there, and you can order through their website. Doing free advertising now. Look at that. Um,
No, that of course, man. Yeah, advertise it up. And so your cousin's out there, and it's basically like a sales office.
yeah, he has a warehouse and he has an office. So Um, it's an online store, so they deliver to you.
Yeah, so it definitely makes sense. They got to keep some stock in Europe to fulfill the orders relatively quickly. How do you get the stock out to Spain, and where's it coming from?
Okay, so this the stock in Spain comes from Asia, and we ship it straight there. So it's not assembled here. Now those come with EU certifications, which is slightly different, and also obviously the wall outlets are different there too. So
Mm,
um, so those ones are built a little different, especially the chargers. So but it's still the same exact body. It's the same motor, the same range, and the same brand. So yeah.
yeah, that's cool. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, but I've spent 2 months living in Barcelona. So I know the city really, really well. They have the Bising bike network out there, which are these sort of bikes that you dock in, sort of like the city bike in New York. And so some of
Yeah.
them are electric, some of them are manual. And I have very fond memories of taking those Bising bikes out of the dock and heading down to the beach, like the city beaches in Barcelona, and kind of doing a little just like quick hour at the beach, whatever, on work days, and
Yeah.
going to play volleyball and for the sunset and stuff like that. And yeah, so obviously a huge bike city, tons of bike lanes, and seems like the perfect city for this product.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, I mean, I know, I think I know the application you're talking about, and yeah, it's definitely a big bike city.
And so just bring this back to the Panama and the Cologne stuff, because I do think it's going to be interesting for our listeners. How did that even like come about? How did that come to play a role where you kind of realized that you needed warehouse space in Panama, or you wanted to sort of like set up a hub or a spoke down there?
So after we sent the shipment to Miami from Southeast Asia, it never cleared U.S. customs. So that's when we had to come up with Latin America. So we wanted to send that shipment to Latin America. So we wanted to pick the best economical country, uh, which was Panama. But it was in the middle of COVID, so you can imagine all the challenges we went through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if you remember, but Panama City was shut down for a while. So I actually traveled to Bocas del Toro, and I was working from there remotely until they opened back the city. Um, so it was definitely a challenge, and we did make connections, and we did end up partnering with a retailer in Panama who was distributing the Aventuras. So that's kind of how it all happened. Yeah, briefly. So that's how it happened, and we wanted to choose the Cologne free zone because we didn't want to get taxed. Especially if we weren't selling everything in Panama. So
Okay, and so it wasn't just like a shipment point. The bikes didn't just stay in a container. Some amount of the bikes actually got sold into Panama.
yes, which is crazy because we never had have thought we would ever sell anything in Panama in the middle of a pandemic. But this was like life lesson learned, if you would like. So this is one of the failures that I was talking about earlier. uh, you know, I had to face these consequences, before, being here today. So definitely lesson learned. And that's why now we're assembling everything in the US and opposing to bringing them fully assembled from overseas,
Mm,
which is also providing more jobs, to Americans. And this was kind of the trade war with China when Donald Trump was
hmm
president, actually. So
hmm
this was one of his conditions. and it's still valid until today. You can't bring an assembled vehicle from overseas and just clear U.S. customs. So that was one of the biggest challenges we went through, and yeah, that's how we ended up in Panama.
That's interesting. And so, was there a period of time where things were clearing in LA, but they weren't clearing in Miami?
So we had to disassemble everything in the Cologne free zone and send it back as parts in order to clear U.S. customs. So we had to take all these extra steps to make it happen. I had to come up with a quick solution because it was in the middle of a pandemic, and we're paying port fees, we're paying warehouse fees. There's a lot of expenses just adding up. So I decided I wanted to disassemble everything and send to Latin America, because remember, I had another shipment also coming from overseas, so we've already paid for. So we wanted to move this inventory as quick as possible. This was one of the hardest challenges, but like you said, we're over that hump. That was a while ago now. So
Dude,
crazy
it sounds,
experience. But
you know what? Like, as you're explaining this, you really sound like Elon Musk to me, you know? I've seen so many, I've seen so many Elon interviews where he's talking about how it's easy to design something. Um, but what's hard is actually the logistics and the assembly and the
yeah, it's
for him
true.
the building of the plants and everything like that. And of course, you're doing it with an electric vehicle as well. So I'm definitely seeing some Elon similarities here.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. When it comes to logistics, there's a big logistics problem, and even assembling. If you're missing one piece, let's say the USB port, now you have to wait days to just get that one piece, to your assembly plant in order to assemble a full scooter. So there's all these challenges that we had to go through, and now we kind of know how to navigate better, in order to try to get all the parts as soon as possible, and what parts could be missing, potentially order extras. So there's all these little details that you learn throughout this journey.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's yeah, and by the way, this reminds me, I have a buddy, I actually just saw him a month ago in San Francisco. They have a company called Bimodal, Bimotal, and what they have is basically like an electric motor for bicycles, and it's sort of like like a like an electric motor that attaches on to an existing like mountain bike. Yeah, mostly like a mountain bike. And it's all like ex Tesla engineers, ex SpaceX engineers. It's like a full scale San Francisco startup. They've raised a lot of money, they have a high valuation. And it's basically like this piece. I don't know if it's like $1,000 now or whatever, and you can basically put it on your mountain bike, and it has like a cable that goes all the way up, sort of like a brake line up to your handlebars, and there's a button, and you press the button, and your bike just zooms, and it goes into like electric mode, and you're just like woo, and it's crazy, and they're just like coming out with this now. They've been working on it for well over a year, and I got to try. I think they might have started selling like the betas, but I got to try one of the first betas in San Francisco just a month ago, um, and it's super super cool. So I'll get you in touch with my buddy who's the CEO of Bimodal.
Sure, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So, and I do have a couple more questions about the Panama stuff and the Cologne stuff. Um, so I'm sure there's so many lessons in there. I want to be like respectful of your time, and maybe you don't want to talk about it too much, but like, what lessons have you learned kind of shipping a product internationally from Asia to Panama? How has your experience been? dealing with, the Panamanian port authorities, like you said, bringing the product into Panama, um, like, dealing with all the fees, talking to people. Maybe there's language barriers as well. Um, how's that whole experience been?
No, that's a really good question, actually. There's definitely the first challenge you get to Latin America is, you got to pick up Spanish quick, especially if you're running a business. I mean, we had to open a bank account in Spanish. We had to find attorneys that speak only Spanish. And, thankfully, I speak French fluently, and I took some Spanish in high school. So it kind of helped. I was like a little rusty at first, but as I lived there, I picked it up. And regarding custom clearance and shipping to Panama, um, the authorities in Latin America are much more lenient, for product that's coming from Asia versus the U.S.
Okay.
In the US, they have so many protocols, they have so many rules. Also, there is the import tax, which is huge in US. It's there around 26%. You know, and you have all these difficulties importing in the US versus Panama. I'd say, especially in the I had it in the free zone, so technically didn't enter Panama. Uh, so
Hmm.
it's a trade free zone. So a lot of people store their goods there and ship, to Colombia, to Mexico, all over.
Interesting, because yeah, I'm not super well versed in this world. So when you say like it's tax free, I'm almost like, what is even being taxed? But I forgot, if you're just bringing an electric scooter, or let's just say a motor, in from Asia to the US, you're paying tax on something that you already bought and paid for just to like bring it into the country, right? It's like an import duty.
Exactly, and the reason why the U.S. does this is to try to push American citizens to basically
Domestic
produce a
production.
product
Yeah.
within the U.S. versus
Yeah.
importing from the outside, because you want your own economy, to rise, and you want to employ Americans versus giving jobs to Asians, right? Um, so that's the whole idea behind it, behind the high taxes, and it
Hmm.
varies from country to another, obviously, but
And did you
that's the
look
idea.
at or try any other Latin countries, or free trade zones or anything like that, or was Panama always the obvious choice?
So yeah, no, I went straight to Panama. It was, you know for me, it was the safest, yet the one of the closest, safest, and tax free zones, Cologne. You know so that was definitely my choice. I didn't get to see other places.
Okay. And was that sort of only like an intermediary step, or do you not need Panama anymore because you're doing more assembly in California, or is Panama still part of the international plan?
you know Not this second, but I have, like, I kind of have it in my back pocket. So um if we were to distribute to Latin America, if we were to open a Latin American market, that would
Hmm.
be where I'd be assembling the scooters. Um, it is Panama, and the reason why I say I'm also assembling the scooters from now on is because of the high shipping prices. So it just makes sense to reduce cost, to bring everything in parts versus assembled. Um, so this is very important because the shipping prices are skyrocketing because of the lack of containers in today's
Right. And there was like the
logistic world.
famous backup in the port in LA, and they couldn't get the product through LA. I think that's still
Yeah,
happening to some extent, right?
yeah, yeah. We always have the port in LA congested, so that's not new.
Yeah. Do you use a Flexport? Are you familiar with Flexport? It's like a a startup that
I'm actually not.
okay.
I'm not familiar with
Yeah,
it.
I don't know fully their role, but you could take a look at Flexport. It's like a Silicon Valley style startup, and they kind of handle the logistics industry. And the CEO is kind of an expert on the LA port and sort of the international kind of container and freight industry. So you could take a look at that. And then just back to Panama. So yeah, and so I like what you said about having it in your back pocket, because I think for a lot of people listening to this, and for me as well, Latin America provides a really good plan B, um, from a business perspective, but also from like a personal perspective, where Canadians and Americans, we can set up residency or buy second houses or open bank accounts or do business in Latin America. And maybe it doesn't necessarily need to become our primary hub of operations or the center of our lives, like right off the bat, but it's really easy to sort of set up on a plan B or secondary basis and sort of have that open and keep it as sort of like a tool in the tool belt.
For sure. No, for sure. I agree with you 100%. There's a lot of, it's definitely up and coming, and there's a lot of new businesses that are, as you know, because, a lot of people we met there were just there to start up their own business, which was interesting. It's definitely up and coming region.
hmm And I really remember now, at the Selena in Casco Viejo in Panama, that you had the bright red Aventura X bike parked
Yeah.
at the front door of the Selena. And I also remember a couple times you're like, oh yeah, we're going up to Cologne for a couple days. You want to tag along, blah, blah, blah. And I felt like you were taking trips to Cologne, like basically on a weekly basis, checking in on things.
Yeah.
And it's so just a lot of fun
That was
stuff
my
going on.
ride. That was my Panama City ride, the Aventura. I went with it everywhere. I loved it. Um,
Did you ever actually ride the scooter from
oh my
Panama
god,
City
all
to
the
Cologne?
time. And
Really?
I didn't have a ride. That was my only ride there. So I was riding it everywhere, and I loved
Like
it.
on the highway?
Oh no, no, not to Cologne, in Panama
Oh,
City.
in Panama City. Okay,
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. No, no, not to Cologne.
Did you ever bring
Um,
one out to Bocas?
I didn't. I never did. But Bocas is a great place. I miss Bocas.
How much time
Um,
did you spent like 3 months in Bocas? No, more? Six
I was,
months?
yeah, I was total 6 months in Panama. I was in Bocas for about a month and a half,
Okay.
to 2 month. Yeah,
And you were there like Christmas, New Year's or something.
yeah, yeah. I was stuck in Panama for for Christmas and New Year's. Yeah.
I remember that. Did you ever get a Panama residency?
No, I never got one. Did you end up doing that?
Yeah, that's why I was down there. Was working on the residency,
That's
going to
right.
immigration offices, getting my bank account set up. So yeah, I'm now a permanent resident of Panama, and definitely looking to increase my ties to Panama in the future, and do business in Panama in the future.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you get a nice house in Playa now.
And yeah, maybe yeah, Vanau, or I always liked Valle de Anton. I don't know if you ever
Oh,
made it up there. It's like
no, but I've heard of it.
oh, it's super dope. It's like an extinct volcano crater. And so it's kind of you're in this like bowl almost, and it's just like tropical, and it's kind of like Medellin type of like vegetation and waterfalls and mountains everywhere. And it's just, you drop a seed in the ground, and something will grow. So I always thought Anton was cool. But yeah, I've never been to Vanau, but I really want to head down there and go surfing.
For sure, yeah, Vanau is beautiful. It's one of my
I
favorite places in Panama.
Yeah, and I guess you went down there to stay at the Selena.
I said it, Selena. Yeah, yeah. It was
um,
awesome.
so you were kind of alluding to how in Panama you met a lot of other business people doing business in the free trade zone, or maybe that you met at Selena, or just kind of in and around. Maybe you could just speak to briefly like um, some of the different people that you met in Panama from all walks of life, different countries who've come to Latin America doing quirky different things.
Yeah, definitely. I met different people from all over, especially like a lot of German people, and a lot of Europeans. I see that would be coming to Panama to do business. Again, I'm not sure what's what's the economical status in Europe, but I see a lot of people coming in, and also obviously Panama offers the nice weather, uh, which is an important factor for a lot of Europeans, also Canadians. I'm sure it's really cold in
Definitely,
Canada.
definitely.
Um, so yeah, that's I saw different people with different interesting ideas. I met this guy that was opening he wanted to open his own Selena type motel. Building a motel out of containers, which I thought was interesting. And I also met this other girl who was opening a coffee shop, which she actually opened it in Playa Venal. Um, Actually, she's up and running now. Um, so yeah, just different cool business ideas, and they're all young in their 20s, similar to us, just opening different businesses, which I thought was interesting. And everyone was heading, that I met was in Panama because I lived there. So I'm not sure about the other Latin countries, but
Hmm.
I thought that was something interesting.
Yeah, that's really encouraging to hear. I definitely have a couple of those anecdotes. I remember this one Australian guy who works on like $1 million yachts year round, and he just lives on a yacht. And he's like, "Oh, I don't want to pay tax to Australia when I just live in the ocean, basically." And so he just got Panama permanent residency, and he's like, "Dude, I don't have to pay tax anymore. I don't even like touch land, basically. Like it's
Yeah.
awesome." And I don't know if you have
That's
any more.
funny.
If you have more stories, like definitely mention
If
them
I
because they're
remember
Disney
something,
jokes.
I'll show you. I do
It,
miss Panama, though.
it's
You're taking me
encouraging that
back.
you're that there are lots of young people bringing new energy. I did like notice that it was kind of hard to do business. I didn't really start doing business really, but um, I did have to open a company for my residency. And I remember I'm like, oh well, I just want to open like a bank account for the company. And they were like, "Oh, the fee to like open the corporate bank account is going to be like $800, $1,000, $1,200 just to open it." And I was like, "Wait, what?" Like, and so I just never even ended up opening an account
The
for the
bank account.
company. Yeah, and so
You have to
it
find the
wasn't
right
as
people,
easy.
though. You
Mm,
have to kind of shop for it.
hmm.
There's like a shopping process, or you call and get different codes, which is what we always do. But yeah,
Hmm.
you're right. I mean, some people try to rip you off, especially when they see you're not from there. They 100% try to rip you off. So that's a heads up for anyone trying to open a business in Latin America.
It definitely just had more fees attached to it than I was expecting. Like, I think the company to keep the company active was going to be one way was going to be like $600 a year. One way is going to be $900 a year just to keep the company active. Whereas
Yes,
I have a Texas company that costs, it was like $200 to open or something. And it's like $0 a year to keep it active. And I would have liked to keep the Panama company active just for the sake of it as like a back pocket thing. But I'm like, oh, I don't want to pay $900 a year, So
same. I did the exact same thing. I didn't want to keep it active either. So
yeah, I mean, obviously it's a big revenue source for the company, so or the country rather. So it's hard for Panama to change that rule because they just have so many companies, and most people are just big bosses doing bigger stuff than us. But I wish they had some sort of I don't know, entrepreneur or startup program where they could reduce those fees to people that just want to get it going.
yeah, for sure. Especially if you're working in Latin America, and you want to be able to maintain a business, so it's important to reduce those fees. I agree with you.
And I want to be respectful of your time. I know that you could only kind of do an hour, so I guess we'll try to wrap up in the next 10 minutes or so. Um, One or two last questions about Panama. How did you sort of source your lawyers or contacts? And do you have any tips around kind of finding good people to work with or anecdotes, learning experiences that you had in the process?
Um, yeah, I would just say, if you're trying to open a business, definitely you want to keep, your costs low. So definitely shop around, for the most cost efficient lawyer, because you do need a lawyer, for him to basically take care of, your paperwork once you
Hmm.
get there, to open up your corporation or your LLC. Um, so yeah, we shopped around and we ended up getting this this guy actually called Richard Ballard, and he knew English, which was perfect. So yeah, so that's what we ended up with, and yeah, just keep your costs down. Shop around for the best prices is my best advice.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Random kind of question I was curious about. So most of the scooters didn't make it out of the free trade zone, but you did bring a couple into Panama. You sold a few. You rode around the country in a few. What was the process to just like take like whatever like a dozen of them out of the container out of the free trade zone? Was that a difficult process, or you had to pay tax when they exited the free trade zone, or like what happened?
Exactly. We did pay. There was a lot of paperwork. We did pay taxes when we cleared them. We had to talk to a custom broker and schedule shipping. So there was a little process there. So it was just a lot of back and forth and paperwork.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So you definitely had to speak to a lot of different sort of paperwork administrative guys than I did, in different sort of facets of things. So that's really cool that you were able to find people. And by the way, so from then sending things on from Panama to Miami, was that a relatively seamless process, or how was managing that?
Yeah. So that's when that was one of the most complicated process, because I had to disassemble everything inside of someone else's warehouse. So it was pretty challenging, but I was able to hire you know helpers to help me disassemble and repackage and weld different cages. So that all the parts fit. Um, yeah, it was definitely a mission, but we went through that, and yeah, everything was back in the U.S. and it was reassembled and is now sold and it's being driven by our customers. So
You make it sound a lot easier, just like, oh, we're in the warehouse, we disassembled things. But I know a little bit more. I think I have a clearer picture, and just, you're in this like oil soaked floor of this like rusted factory, maybe, and like it's so humid and it's like
it's
30
so hot.
degrees,
There is no AC.
so hot, and you're like, you're in like your overalls or whatever, and you're just like sweating and covered in like oil or something. Like, I'm sure it was a much more involved process.
It was pretty challenging, but hey, you got to do it. That's what you sign up for the second you open up your business. So
Dude, and you know what? That's actually what I really, really respect you as an entrepreneur. I know like lots of drop shipper guys that, deal with Asia, but they're not touching any product really. I know lots of people doing internet business in Panama or Latin America or whatever, but um, you're, having to deal with a physical product, doing physical assembly, having this
yeah,
like whole sort of multinational supply chain, having actually like engineering elements to it, having to deal with customs officers, having to deal with the Department of Transportation and all these like what's it called, like, whatever certification agencies in different countries. Like, these are all real tough, sticky problems, and I think a lot of people would just give up at some point, or they'd just be like, "Oh my god, I can't. I don't want to wake up and have to, read in weird legal documents about how to
Yeah,
like do this like insane process." Like, dude, you've accomplished some really crazy stuff.
I appreciate that, and I like to think I haven't accomplished anything yet. And that's the mentality that I think every entrepreneur should have, because the second you think that, I don't think you move forward. So we still have a lot of work to do.
And so, how are you acquiring your customers? And then, what percentage of people are buying the scooter outright versus requiring some sort of financing?
Um, I'd say probably 25 to 30% of our buyers are doing financing, and the rest is buying it straight from the either the website or from our dealers.
Hmm.
Also, our dealers offer financing, but we don't deal with that.
And how much sales are you doing directly versus how important are sort of dealers or distributors?
Last year we were 95% direct to consumer. This year, it's going to be close to 50-50. We've opened up all of our dealers network, which is why um, that high projection number that I just gave you earlier is because we have now our dealers, ordering in bulk, which is, increasing our sales tremendously.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So majority West Coast sales, good split
No,
between men and women.
all over. We have all the way to New York, Florida, all over the U.S. We just opened up Canada, so yeah,
Hmm.
all over, man.
Dude, that's super super amazing. What else? And so you recently released the sidecar. What else is in sort of the product pipeline?
So yeah, so we have the sidecar, we have the 40 mile per hour one, which we released as well, and we have our 30 mile per hour EV 2000 model, which is the standard model. Um, and by next year, hopefully, you know, if we get on a conference call again, I'll have the self balancing feature, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, I that would be awesome. We can definitely do like a once a year recap or something. And do you have like a affiliate link?
Yeah, for sure. We have promo codes,
Hmm.
so we can create a promo code if you would like. If they watch this video, and yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah, man, get me a My Latin Life promo code, and I'll blast it on Twitter. We'll put it in
Yeah.
the
Oh,
description link.
absolutely. We've been getting a lot of sales from other YouTube channels as well. Um, so yeah, I'd love that.
Awesome, man. Any we're coming to the end of the episode, so if there's anything else that you want to promote or mention, while we still have time, now's the time.
No, nothing else, man. Just thank you for having me. Um, yeah, I'm just happy to see you again. It's been a while. We haven't spoken, and yeah, man, keep doing what you're doing, and yeah, I always see you traveling, and I love it working remotely, doing your thing. It sounds
Mhm.
awesome, man. I want to go back to traveling eventually. I love to travel, so that's awesome.
Yeah, man, living the dream. And no, I appreciate the kind words. You open the interview saying, "Hey, man, good to see you. Catch up, blah blah blah," and you're ending the interview like that. So I love how you're keeping it personable, and we're
For
keeping the
sure, man.
connection alive, and hopefully we can catch up and get a beer at some point in the near future.
Definitely, man. For sure. Let me know when you're here in Santa Monica.
Definitely, man, and I'll yeah, definitely give my regards to the team as well, to Ara
To
and
Ara,
everyone else. Yeah.
I will.
Thanks, man. And especially thanks for doing this so late. I mean, I think we're both coming off like a 14, 16 hour work day or whatever. So, uh,
No
and,
worries, man.
and this might have been your first sort of full length kind of interview or podcast, I bet.
Yeah, no, I've never been on a hour 5 minute podcast.
Well, dude, this was definitely really really interesting. I love talking to entrepreneurs, international entrepreneurs, doing sick numbers too. So again, Aventura X is the company. The website is Aventura, Aventura X.com.
Yeah.
Go pick up your electric scooter. They're super super dope, and I can't wait to ride one. I'll be getting the 40 mile per hour version.
Okay. If you like to go a little fast, that's the one.
No, thanks again, man. I definitely appreciate it. This was an awesome
Yeah.
conversation.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. Honestly, appreciate it.
Yeah. Cheers.
Take care.